Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Budget fließen in den MFR, Steuern, zum Beispiel CO2-Steuer oder eine Steuer auf nicht wiederverwertbares Plastik. Ist das etwas, das Luxemburg durchaus antizipiert?
Ja, ich finde, es wäre gut, wenn die Einkünfte von Europa auch mit den Prioritäten von Europa übereinstimmen und eine Ressource, die auf Plastik oder auf CO2-Ausstöße basiert wäre eine interessante Lösung, denn dann würden wir etwas für den Klimaschutz tun und Europa steht ja da als der Hauptverteidiger des Klimaschutzes und wenn wir das so anpacken, würden wir was Gutes tun für den Klimaschutz.
Glauben Sie, dass Ihre Amtskolleginnen und Kollegen das auch so sehen?
Ich hoffe es.
Noch eine Frage. Mr. Gramegna, could you ask a question in English as well?
Yes, I'll come.
Die Finanzminister, Euro-Finanzminister sollen heute auch Christine Lagarde offiziell nominieren als neue EZB-Präsidentin. Ist die qualifiziert dafür?
Ganz bestimmt.
Und wird die EZB jetzt mehr politisiert? Das ist ja, was viele Kritiker jetzt sagen.
Ja, es ist das erste Mal, glaube ich, ist das Profil des EZB-Präsidenten anders ist. Christine Lagarde hat viel Erfahrung in ihrem Leben gesammelt und darum bin ich sehr zuversichtlich, dass sie das schaffen kann.
Wer sollte der Nachfolger für Frau Lagarde beim IWF sein?
Das steht noch im Raum.
Auf jeden Fall ein Europäer? Auf
jeden Fall ein Europäer, der kompetent ist und große Erfahrung hat im Krisenmanagement. Das ist das, was wir brauchen.
Aber haben Sie schon einen Namen im Kopf?
Es sind ja viele, die zirkulieren, aber ich glaube, es ist noch ein bisschen früh. Danke.
Danke.
You like the name speculation? Clearly. I wanted to ask you about Italy. Late last year, the Commission said to the Italian government, we don't like your draft budget. And they managed to, back and forth, decide that everything was okay and we could move into 2019. Here we are, halfway through the year. The Italians have just narrowly avoided an EDP. And we're getting close to draft budget time, as I'm sure you know. So when it gets to October, how confident are you and your fellow finance ministers that Mr. Trier, based on what he's told you yesterday and over the last few weeks and months, will be able to find a balance between the demands of his government and the demands of the Commission?
First of all, we have to see that Italy has delivered new numbers for the budget of 2019, and that there are more revenues than expected, and that the dialogue with the Commission has worked. So on the basis of the Commission's analysis and the calculations of the Commission itself, Italy will comply with the budget rules of Europe during this year 2019. So that is the reason why an excessive deficit procedure could be avoided this year. Now, obviously, the Italian government has a couple of months to prepare the draft budgetary plan for next year. Let's see what's in it. Obviously, every government can, even in a short amount of time, see how to reduce expenditures or increase taxes. The Italian government has said that it will implement a spending review. So let's see what comes out of that spending review, which is obviously the most efficient way to reduce the pressure on the budget.
Would you characterize your view as optimistic about that process then?
I am always optimistic by nature. That's how you have to be when you're a politician.
One other question about the ECB head job. Obviously, Christine Lagarde nominated. Is she a shoo-in at this point? Is she guaranteed the role?
Well, I think there's been an agreement at the highest level in Europe so that she should fulfill this role, and I think she has all the weapons, all the qualities to do the job well. She has experienced tough crises internationally and is dealing with debt management, crisis management on an everyday basis at the IMF, so she'll be able to deal with that at the ECB level, so I wish her good luck.
One final question about the ECB. If we end up with her continuing with Mr. Draghi's policies and we remain in a low interest rate environment, what does that do to European growth, which has fallen so far behind the US?
Well, ultra-low interest rates cannot be kept in the very long term, especially if you have to realize that there's always going to be financial cycles and economic cycles. If you have a very accommodative monetary policy and a crisis comes, you do not have the monetary policy as a weapon. So we have to rebuild buffers. It's true for the national budgets, it's also true for the monetary policy. This being said, the very low interest rates help countries invest at a very cheap rate and improve the productivity of the economy. So in itself, that is good, but obviously you need to, in the long term, have a more sound interest rate policy. Nobody would have thought that it would last 10 years, but obviously in a while that policy must change.
Minister, who do you think should succeed Lagarde as head of IMF?
Well, I would support a candidate that has a good experience in crisis management at international level, someone who is very articulate in his judgment and can communicate complicated ideas in a simple manner.
He or she?
Well, my personal guess is it could be a he.
And do you think he should be European?
Definitely.
Definitely. One more question. Countries with low public debt like Germany, do you think that they should be spending more to support Eurozone economy?
Well, it's an old debate that we have inside the European Union. We had a discussion yesterday in the euro area where the Commission recommends that those countries that have fiscal space, that have a little bit money on the side, should use that money to trigger productive investment. That productive investment will be good for those countries themselves and will have spillover effects on other countries. So definitely those that have space will not do it, fiscal space will not do it only for the others, they will do it for themselves.
Thank you. I support Mr. Dijsselbloem for the IMF.
I think it's still too early to give names, but I think I've given you the framework of the person.
One of the candidates that fits the description you just...
Yes, he fits the description. You're completely right.
Last question about Italy.